Welcome to Unmasking Dementia: Lived Experiences, a podcast featuring families who have navigated the challenges of dementia. Through heartfelt stories, we will delve into trials, triumphs, and wisdom gained along the way. My name is Christiana. I'm a registered nurse, dementia advocate, children's author specializing in dementia education, memory care specialist, owner of reputable memory care facilities in Toronto, Canada, as well as the founder of a Roseville Grammar Wellness Hub, a charitable organization that caters to the needs of communities of Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Dementia often strikes unexpectedly, affecting individuals, loved ones, and caregivers. While each journey is unique, the shared experiences of caring for loved ones with dementia brings us together. By sharing the experiences, we find solace in knowing that our emotions, be it anger, frustration, shame, or sadness, are shared. Additionally, insights from professionals in the dementia field will shed light on care, management, and prevention strategies. Join us as we raise awareness, offer support, empower, and unravel the complexities of dementia together. I am very excited to introduce on our very first podcast our esteemed guest, Jill O'Donnell, who has both been a friend and a mentor to me. Together with my late husband, Tony, she played an important role as a consultant in founding Alexis Lodge 25 years ago. Jill's involvement marked the beginning of my journey into the world of dementia care. Now, a quarter century later, she returns for the beginning of another significant chapter. It is indeed a full circle moment. Jill's expertise, backed by her impressive credentials, is unmatched. But what truly sets her apart is her first-hand experience as a caregiver, navigating the heartbreaking challenges of dementia. She tragically lost her soulmate, hero, and husband, Leo, to Lewy Body Dementia, a journey marked by profound loss and resilience. Jill is an aging authority and advocate. She trained as a nurse, did her postgraduate in public health. Immediately after graduating, she then went on to do social work administration and a degree in sociology. She has held numerous positions in the healthcare field until she started her own consulting firm, Complete Geriatric Care, the very first person-centered care in all of Canada, which started in 1981. In 2008, she rebranded it as Iris Consulting for Seniors, Inc. The tagline says it all. We cannot stop aging, we can help you through it. She also ran the Eldercare Connection, a networking breakfast for anybody who had anything to do with older people, and this ran from 1994 to 2015. In the 1990s, Jill was instrumental in developing small group homes for individuals with cognitive impairment. And of course, this was how we met Jill. Alexis Lodge began in 1999. It has proven the value of a small home setting as a place to treat people with cognitive impairments. Jill has been featured in radio, television, newspaper, and magazines locally, regionally, and internationally. She has authored 3 books and 1 memoir. So welcome, Jill, to this very, very first episode. I'm so excited to have you.
Well, let me tell you, I'm excited too, because You have done all of the things that I wished I had been able to do, but the timing wasn't right. And I think that we are in such an era now where the importance of small group homes like Alexis Lodge and your expertise and your caring, concerned nature make all the difference in the world to the people who live there. That's what really matters. It truly is a home.
Thank
So
you so
thank you
much.
so much for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. And I'm so excited to talk to you about your experience, both as a professional and as a caregiver. So please, Jill, share a little bit about your personal journey with dementia and how it has impacted you and your family.
Well, first of all, Leo was a man who had Lewy bodies, a form of dementia that is not well known or talked about. And I remember for many years he would say, "Oh, gee, I remember my mother, I go and visit her. She had sticky notes all over the place. And when I go there, she couldn't remember what the sticky notes were for. I hope I don't get to that level." He and I started out a long time ago, but we didn't get married until I was 62 and he was 71. So he had already was into his dementia because it really is before diagnosis, you're into it about 10 years before people recognize it. And I too was in denial. I did not want to admit that he had dementia. So we traveled all over the world. We went to Australia 3 times. We went to England about 7 or 8 times. In fact, we were in England the year before he went into hospital. So he would rise to the occasion. And that made it really difficult for anybody trying to deal with it. But I can honestly say that I too was really in denial. And even as a professional, we would talk about dementia, but we would talk about it about other people, not about him. So, it's a hard role to play. And often, even when you're a professional, you don't want to admit that, gee whizzikers, it's happening to you too. And that's part of the process, I think, as well, for everybody.
I personally think that dementia is one of the most difficult things to diagnose, at least at the beginning stages.
Yeah.
One of the very first staff that you helped us to recruit actually ended up having dementia. And it took a little bit of time for us to be able to realize that that was what was happening. It's most times it's in hindsight that people go, oh my God, no wonder that is what was happening, right?
Oh,
So,
absolutely. You can pinpoint all kinds of things in retrospect.
yes. So, my next question for you would be, what are some of the initial changes that you recognized when he started? And like we just said, it's really difficult, right? So,
Absolutely.
yes. And how did when you finally realized what was happening, how did it make you feel? What were your fears? What were your concerns?
Well, first of all, for the longest time, as I said, I was in denial. And then when you finally get the diagnosis, you think, oh, good, I was right all along. But he was so far gone at that point. I remember sitting in the den with him, and he'd be looking up at the ceiling and at the walls and looking around. He'd say, honey, I know you can't see them, but there's writing on the wall. And that is the time teller of dementia with Lewy bodies. And I would say, close your eyes. So he would close his eyes, and I'd say, let's count to 10. And then at 10, I'd say, open them up. And he'd say, oh, thank goodness it's gone. That sort of thing. And then what happened, that was on a Thursday. And on the Sunday, he was admitted to hospital. And I was very frustrated because he was given antipsychotic drugs. Never, never, never should you give somebody with Lewy bodies antipsychotic drugs. So he was berserk. He was crying and screaming and trying to get out of bed. It was very difficult. The second day, they got a sitter for him. The second day I went to see him, he was tied with his legs and his arms to the bed. And I immediately went in and took them off. I said, nobody consulted me about this. This is illegal. Well, they were all apologetic, of course. And I said, I want something done properly for my husband. So I got him into the memory floor. That was a blessing. He was probably there for about 3, 4 weeks. And then the doctor said to him one day, Mr. O'Donnell, we're going to move you to palliative care to show you what kind of a sense of humor he had. Well, he said, Doctor, when am I going to die? The doctor looked at him and he didn't know what to say. And I'm sort of standing in the background with a grin on my face. And the doctor's struggling like mad. And Leo said, you see, I'm past my best before date. He had a wonderful sense of humor. And I think that sometimes when people are more highly intelligent, this is what happens. They can hide it for a lot longer. They don't really want to talk about it, so they don't let anybody know, and they cover on a continuing basis. So that's really what happened with him. And the best thing, go ahead. I was going to say the best thing that came out of this was they actually did a 6-minute tape on my concerns, and it's being used as a educational tool at the hospital.
Wonderful, wonderful. Where can we get that? Or is it
I
specific?
can get it for you on a memory stick, but otherwise no. But he was having falls. When they finally diagnosed him, he had fractures of his pelvis, his spine, and I can't remember what else it was. And they would ignore all of this. And I said, listen, he's got to have something wrong. He has osteoporosis. He's going to have problems. Again, it's the whole system is not designed to deal with these people. I mean, strangely enough, I was recently in hospital and I ended up in the same room that Leo was in.
Are you serious? Oh my
Yep,
God.
A314.
Oh my
And there were two gentlemen there with dementia. One was Harry and the other was George. And in the middle of the night, they come wandering into the room, which is common. And the nurses would say, George, come on out here. Sit down. Come on, George. Come on, Henry. I finally shouted at them, stop telling them to sit down and give them something to do. I'm so frustrated.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, your expertise would have kicked in. Yeah, the thing about Lewy bodies is that they tend to retain their memories for a very long time. Like,
Yeah, and it comes in and out.
Mm-hmm. And
like you can have long periods of lucidity and then bang.
Like you mentioned at the beginning when you talked about, when you get him to count to 10. So when they're in that delusional state, it's almost like they are in a different world. And then when you can snap them out of it, like, then they come back and yeah. Wow, that must have been really difficult. And my God, how did you feel though being in that room? Must have brought back such sad memories.
Well, it brought back a lot of memories, I'll tell you. Fortunately, I was in the other bed because Leo was by the window and I was not by the window. So it was a 2-bedroom and I was lucky that I wasn't. Then it would have been I would have been frustrated.
It's really sad. I remember when I attended a viewing, and it was in the same room where my husband had laid in state, right? I couldn't stay, I had to leave. And the people there understood. It just brings it all back. And, wow. I'm glad you're feeling
and all that
better.
And anger and frustration is there too.
Yes, yes.
Oh, absolutely.
It breaks my heart when people with dementia, especially the really old people, like you remember Mr. Smith, one of our first residents, 97-year-old man.
Oh, yes.
Restrained in a hospital bed. That broke my heart. Yes,
I know.
he was verbally aggressive, but he couldn't even get out of bed. After I pleaded with them to release him.
And that was fine too.
And then they said, oh, when you leave, we're going to restrain him again. I'm like, but he can't get out. He's not going to hit you or anything. So, but I think we've come a long way with dementia care since 25 years ago. They tend to be more understanding and more gentle with people now. But the sad thing is because hospitals are understaffed, it's difficult to do the care give the
The thing is,
attention that they
the
need.
most care facilities don't understand dementia. And that includes hospitals. The nurses are only trained to deal with sick people. People with dementia aren't sick. They have an issue that is quite beyond their depth, and they need help to get through it. It's a whole different thing. You can't just give them a Band-Aid and say, go away.
And that
It
is
just
why we
doesn't
need
work
to
that
talk
way.
about it more. This is why I'm trying to do this podcast so more people will hear, listen, and learn, just because
Right.
people are so different and this knowledge is so, so needed.
Well, as I
And
said, I feel that my world went from glorious technicolor to varying shades of gray. And that's exactly what happened. Suddenly, everything is so different. You have to adjust your whole world to it.
exactly. It's such a lose-lose situation. I always tell families in the beginning, when the individual knows something is happening for them, they become sad, they become agitated, because they
Yeah,
can feel it. But as time goes on, and the family, of course, also is impacted, like you said. But then when you get towards the end, when that person becomes peaceful and they don't know anything anymore, it's
right.
even worse for the family. So it's a losing battle. And that is why I often say dementia is not an individual disease. It's a family disease.
It
And
is.
as a matter of fact, it's a community disease. Because if we can join hands and help these people, if we can, just be empathetic and compassionate, and lend them helping hands and do the little bit that we can, I think it'll make it a lot easier for everyone.
Well, you have changed the whole complexity of care in such a way that you've made it very personal. And I think that's what's needed. You have introduced things at Alexis Lodge long before they became popular. Music, for example. You were singing and dancing right from the get go 25 years ago.
Yes.
Today, everybody says, oh, yeah, music's great. We should have more music. Well, gee whiz, you've been doing that for a long time.
Yeah.
That's the
My
important
goal
part
is
about
to make
this.
people happy, make them comfortable and just live life, as with such integrity and quality in spite of the diagnosis of dementia.
Exactly. And the look on people's faces when they are happy, when they hear music that they like, even where I live, which is like a retirement home, when we have programs, we have two ladies who are turning 100 next, and one in April and one in August. And you watch them when we have singers, we invite singers here for events, they're tapping their toes and clapping their hands. It's only natural. They love it.
Yes, absolutely.
You can relate to them. Yeah,
It's a universal language, music.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm just wondering, did you find any help in your journey? Like were there resources or community programs that helped you along the way?
actually, I did not. I found, if anything, they were very frustrating. I had the supervisor of the local community center, community program, come to see Leo in early December, and I said I really would like to see him placed, and it's rather urgent. Oh, she said, you're a nurse, you can look after him. I said, I'm working full time. I can't. I said, I have to pay somebody to be here with him. So when I said to her, I would really like to have an urgent placement, she was not listening to me. I said, I had phoned, I think, EMS 5 times at that point because he kept falling and he was 6 feet tall and I was 5 feet tall. I could not get him up comfortably. And because of his osteoporosis, I would say, don't try to get up. I would get 911 and they would come. And they kept telling the local CCAC what was going on. Nobody paid attention. This is what I find very frustrating about them. Everybody who works in these kinds of settings should have an understanding of dementia. They should be told to go and visit places with people with dementia. They should understand how hard it is to be a caregiver. For example, Leo would get up in the middle. He'd wake me up and he'd say, "I want to go to the bathroom." By the time I got around to his side of the bed, he had stood up, had peed all over the floor. I had to clean that up, clean him up, and then he'd say, "Well, I want to go to the bathroom now." So you also lose sleep, and people don't realize that, and you become sleep deprived.
Yes.
And you don't think about it. You just
Caregiver burnout is real. This is one of the most difficult diseases to deal with,
yeah,
especially when you have someone with responsive behaviors. And I tell people, especially one of the reasons that I started a Rose for Grandma Wellness Hub for the BIPOC community is on top of everything that is happening, we have this cultural setbacks where people don't even want to talk about it. People don't
right.
want to deal with it and all that. So it's hard, and people don't want to put their loved ones or admit them into care facilities. What I tell them is rather than risk your own health, there comes a time where home care is no longer the best care for someone with dementia.
It
Because
isn't.
if your
Far
loved
be
one
it.
is not proactively doing anything for themselves anymore, if they cannot get up and they're just staring at the four walls of your home, you need to get them out there to get more stimulation
Yeah,
because that actually helps them cognitively. And I tell people the best thing you can do is put yourself in their shoes and find that place that if the tables were turned, you'll be happy in. So finding the best possible care is what
right.
you should be aiming for. And that way you get some rest and you'll be able to spend more quality time with your loved one.
Well, what was so difficult with Leo and Lewy bodies is he did go, I got him to the Toronto Memory Program, but when he would do the mini mental, he would get 23 or higher, always. So they would say, "Oh, he's fine, he's functioning well." You couldn't argue with them. They're using this stupid little process that they have, and it doesn't make sense. I remember one time he went to see a neurologist shortly after he moved here from California. And the doctor said, "I want you to tell me what address you're at." He said, "I don't know. I just moved here from California." "Well, I want you to tell me what address you're at." He said, "My wife brought me here. I did not drive here. I do not know where it is." And so they say, "Well, you should know." Well, come on. That has nothing to do with the dementia. That's another issue. And I know Dr. Carol Cohen at Sunnybrook, who's a geriatrician, she feels very, very strongly about the many mental not being true because as you talk about cultural issues, people don't know some of the issues that we do in our world that maybe you don't do in your world. And so they don't match.
Yeah, and that can be affected by, did you sleep well last night or did you not sleep well last night? What is your intelligence, level of intelligence? Like if you're a very smart person, like you were saying, sometimes you can wing some of this and
Yeah,
do better than someone
people
else.
can cover up a lot.
Yeah, yeah, especially like you said with Lewy body. I mean, with Alzheimer's, you won't be able because, you just don't have that awareness. But yes.
Exactly.
And looking at, the road travel so far, I think there's been a lot of improvement, so much.
Yeah, that's true. And we still have a long way to go.
A long, long, long way to go. Dementia needs to be a household name.
Yeah, it
Yes.
does. We need to
And
be more comfortable talking about it.
yes, and we should talk about it. We should start as early as elementary school age so they know and learn sensitivity and respect for these individuals because
Yes.
it is actually escalating. The what the Alzheimer's Society of Canada is saying is just going to be such an outstanding disease in the next several years. It's just the rate
It's
is.
it's really as you said, it is a family disease. Everybody suffers. That's the hard part about it.
Yeah. So that would have been my next question, which we've just talked about, the importance of community, the understanding and the support of families that are going through this process. So would you say that having the background that you have, I mean, you were advocating for people with dementia long before this happened to you. We started in these group homes
True.
in Toronto. So would you say that that education and awareness that you had really did set you apart from a lot of other people that are going through this journey?
I'm sorry, you said what?
I said your
Oh,
background, the fact
yeah,
that you've been advocating for people with dementia.
right.
You
For a
started
long
these
time.
group homes long time
Yeah.
before this happened to you personally. So I'm saying, would you say that your education and expertise helped you along the way? Like, did it set your experience apart from what the average person would experience? Did it
Yeah,
help you
I
at
would
all?
say that my knowledge and education was helpful to me, but I knew more often than the people in the community who were trying to deliver it to me. And
Mhm.
that went for caregivers and from agencies and everything.
Yeah, just
It's
like you did with the nurses at the hospital when you were hospitalized recently.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That is
Um,
why, like, I like to encourage people that if your loved one has been diagnosed with dementia, try to learn everything you can about the disease, and that
exactly.
is, again, where this podcast will come in handy, where you can hear from past experiences and learn about struggles and how people overcame those struggles. So, on that note, I'm going to ask you to please give us a reflection of your experience and, give us some insight and also some words of wisdom for other families that are going through this devastating disease journey.
Well, first of all, I think, as you said, a diagnosis is necessary. If you have a diagnosis, then you can get the right medication and treatment. Tonight at dinner, I was sitting with a woman and told her what I was going to do. She's 87, and she said, "Oh, I take a pill for dementia." I said, "How long have you been taking it?" "Oh," she said, "several years now." And I said, "And you know what?" I said, "It doesn't show that you have a dementia." She said, "I'm glad you said that, but I do know I have." And I think that treatment has made a big difference.
Yeah,
Also, by learning more about the disease, like the introduction of music and dance, these are things that really, really help people tremendously. They don't cost money,
no,
but they have an impact that is so important on one's life for everybody. And you've seen that, you know that. I mean, you're Alexis Lodge is part of a movie,
yeah,
Dance or Not Dementia.
right.
Why? Because it goes to show you that dancing can just bring people out. They jump up and down and they look a big smile on their face and they're happy and they clap their hands. It's a whole new world.
Yeah.
And knowing what the person has been diagnosed with helps tremendously because, as you and I both know, there are more than 38 different kinds of dementia. Everybody that has a dementia doesn't have Alzheimer's. And you've already written two children's books, one about vascular dementia and one about Alzheimer's. And I think it's fantastic because you're helping children who are part of the whole family understand better what happens.
Yeah.
I think this is important that kids also get drawn into the picture because they're part of the whole. They really are.
And
I
they,
know
they they have a lot of creative ideas that they can contribute, and they're resilient. And if we don't bring them into the fold and they
yeah,
start to make up their own mind or their own stories about what is happening, they might start to think that grandpa or grandma doesn't love them anymore. And they can,
exactly. And
they
that's how
can
far
start
from the
to
case.
act up, internalize these feelings and even probably even go into a depression. So that is why it's so important to come together as a family, talk about it, and work together to create a healthy environment for everyone. And then the other thing is like apart from the denial, um, family care partners, like the politically correct way to say it these days, caregiver, caregiver burnout is very real.
It
And
is.
some older caregivers will actually die before the people that they are caring for. So
Yeah, and
that
this
is
is the other
why,
thing when people don't plan ahead.
yes, that is why I say it's a community disease, because if we come together as a community, like, if we understand the disease and you have friends whose loved ones are suffering, you can lend a helping hand to your friend. You can offer to go sit down with their loved one. You can bring meals, and
This is
so
what,
forth.
like, don't be afraid to ask for help. I think that's the other thing.
The
So if a
stigma.
neighbor says to you, would you like me to make you a casserole? Say yes, because it gives you time maybe to have a nap or to maybe to go out and do something else. There are lots of things that make such a difference in your life. But the one thing I always tell people is don't beat yourself up. That's for sure. Take one day at a time because nobody's perfect and nobody has all the answers. We have to keep looking for them. They're there and they might be around the corner. But for goodness sake, stop beating yourself up because it's not going to help the person with dementia.
Yeah, asking for help is so important, because the shame, the stigma, we need to get rid of that, because no one subscribes to the disease. No one wants to get dementia of any kind. But
Exactly.
when it happens, seek help, and early intervention actually is great. And then the other thing I want this podcast to do too is not just talking about dementia, but what about the preventative aspect of it? Lifestyle changes. What can we do? How do we live better, sleep better, manage stress better, so that we can mitigate the risk of dementia?
Well, I have to tell you, a few years ago, I would say before COVID, so let's say 6, 7 years ago, I went to an Alzheimer, I guess it was an AGM, and the keynote speaker was a doctor from Holland, from the Netherlands. And the first thing he got up and he said, "You know what, folks?" He said, "I know that you always want to raise money for Alzheimer's, but," he said, "how about using some of the money to just do things for people with dementia?" I thought, that is great. It really made the thing come full circle at that point, because here's a doctor saying, yes, it's important that we have money for research, but now you've got some money, do something with it that's going to make a difference. And I think that's when things like the MP3 players became important. I think it was even before that,
Yeah. Mhm.
because people started to say, oh, well, let's do this. So that happened. And then people started to listen to music. That brought that on, and it moved it even further into that realm of music, dance, and all of those things that are real to us. And I think that what's sad is when people plop their loved ones in front of a TV without any guidance, because that is the worst thing you can do. They'll start talking to TVs. That isn't what they want to do. They need to do things together. If they used to go skating in the wintertime, take them skating in the wintertime. If they used to go on long walks in the summertime, take them for a walk in the summertime. I know you do that at Alexis Lodge. That's so important. It's part of living. You're not just cooped up in a room. You want to be part of a whole environment. And I
Yes.
think this is what, as I said, for caregivers, don't beat yourself up. You're
Mhm.
all doing the best you can.
Yeah, and a diagnosis of dementia doesn't mean life is the end of life. There's still so much
It can
that
be the
people
beginning.
with dementia can do. You just have to do things differently. So I do hope that our listeners have learned one or two things, or something has resonated with somebody. And I just hope that you continue to join us as we join hands with you to unmask dementia. Thank you so much, Jill. It's been such a pleasure. I'm so happy that you were able to join me tonight.
Thank you for having me, and the best of luck in this program. I think it's fantastic.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you.
Thanks a million.
You're welcome.